All right, thank you for joining Click Naija today, the second day of December 2020. How is your December going? So far, so good, I must say. So it is 23 days to Christmas. All right, so today we look at rising food prices in Nigeria. What can be done to stabilize it? On this edition of Youth Assembly, as we focus on the rising food prices in Nigeria and what should be done to stabilize it. Why are food prices even rising? We've seen cases where the staple foods have become high. The prices of the staple foods have become high, and we are looking at how it will be when Christmas comes, whether it will skyrocket or double or triple. Who knows? But I have with me today Mr. Caleb Owunna, who is an agri expert. Welcome, Mr. Caleb.
Good morning,
All
Sylvie. I
right.
can hear you.
Okay, so when you get to Happy New Month, yes. So when you get to the market
I
these
wish you the
days, you
best.
see the price of food stuff like rice. When we come in Mudus now, 800 naira. Some places 1,000. Beans 600, even rising to 800, and the likes like that. And even bread. Some people get bread for 700. The least you can get bread is 400 naira. What do you think is responsible for the rise in food prices at this time?
Well, it's not like a one-off thing. It started as a process. First of all, we saw at some point we saw the border closure, which a lot of persons have come to blame for that. And
Mm-hmm.
we saw also the flood in several parts of the north. We saw the insecurity as well, where people were afraid to go to their farms. Then COVID-19 came about, and it was also more or less like a convenient excuse. I call it a convenient excuse because there were also other policy mistakes or other policy accidents that led us to this point. And so it's not something you would say happened just once. Can you hear me? Oh, see.
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear. Mr. Bunna.
I'm here. So I said it's not something that happened at once. We saw lots of issues from insecurity in the far north to down to the flooding in states like Kebbi State, particularly for rice farmers. And we saw also the border closure. Then COVID-19 came. And so, well, for me, I would say like COVID-19 wasn't really, it's like a convenient excuse. That's what I called
Mm.
it, a convenient excuse, in the sense that there were other things that led to that. Also, you can't rule out the fact that for transportation as well, transporting food has been also another hectic duty due to the fact that there was an increase in the pump price of petrol for drivers, for car drivers and vehicles that transport food. So it's been like it's a gradual process, and it's a cyclical process as well. So it's not just like one thing led to that. It's been a whole lot of there's been a lot of issues in several sectors. Even the government didn't help matters as well. So it's not just like a one-off thing that just happened one day accidentally or maybe due to COVID, like a lot of persons have said. We've had other issues as well. So it's not just one thing, but I hope when we look at it, we look at it from a holistic point of view, that the government they've
Speaking
not
about
been really
border
proactive
closure,
in their own part.
speaking about border closure, which has actually featured prominently as one of the reasons why the food prices are skyrocketing. When the border was closed, the government said it was to discourage illegal importation and boost local production of foodstuff like rice, of course. So some Nigerians have blamed the rise in food prices on the inability of local farmers to produce enough food for the country. Since now we can't even import, so the farmers in Nigeria can't produce enough. So what's your perspective on this?
Well, the border closure was the primary thing was for them, like they said, to boost to stop illegal entry of food materials into the country or foodstuff into the country, so as to encourage local production. For me, the main subject should not even be local production. It should not be encouraging local production. It should have been to eliminate that threat to farmers. But at the same time, when you eliminate the threat to farmers and there's no alternative to production. What I mean, or like an encouragement to production. For instance, if border closure enabled us to have about 40 million metric tons
Mm-hmm.
of rice to 15 million metric tons. According to local production, we're looking at 15 million metric tons from our own local production. The subject of demand and supply and the concept of it in economics comes in when there is a lesser supply in the market, and when there's a higher demand and there's a lesser supply. What affects prices is that prices will go high. So we've gotten to that point where we are not yet sufficient. We've not produced enough. You closed down the borders and you told us you don't want entry into the country, and the one we have is not even enough for us. That's one of the first places where prices will kick in. The prices will go high as a result of accommodation. Because, for instance, if 100 persons come to the market and what you have is just 50 persons willing to sell, what you have at the end of the day is just that the 50 persons willing to sell will increase the price so as to accommodate the population of people that are in need of it. So when you don't have money, you can go to your house. For the person who has, you want to buy, because the basic need of man is food. Beyond every other thing, every man needs to eat to survive.
Well, would you say that's responsible for some of the local rice that have been produced in Nigeria? You see, it's not even cheap also compared to the foreign ones. They'll say a bag of foreign rice is 33,000, but when it comes to local rice, the bag is 28,000. This is not cheap. Why do you think local prices of rice is the way it is in the markets today, despite being produced locally? Huh?
It's simply the concept of demand and supply. The local rice is not even, it's not going to be enough. It doesn't matter the quality. At this point, nobody is talking about if it's local or foreign. It does not matter the quality of rice. The quantity now is what is at stake. And so if the quantity is small and the number of persons in need of it is on the high side, there will always be this increase in price. So that's how it follows. It's just like, for instance, saying a man has 5 children, and out of that 5 children, there's what's it called? You just have a pot of food for them, and that pot of food, normally before you have 5 pots of food for them to choose. When you just have 1 pot of food, everybody will descend on that, and number one, people won't be satisfied, and that's just what goes with price. Once there's a shortage, it does not matter. It's just like maybe 10 persons staying in a room where there's need for air. So once there is a shortage, once there's an increase in the number of persons who are demanding for that, there will be this survival of the fittest. It is who has money now that will buy. So what happens is that price goes up concomitantly, and people will want to, like, no matter how much, please just give me this thing, I need it. It's just like water. It doesn't matter how much you have. If you're thirsty, you will pay anything to drink water. You do anything to drink water. So that's how price is for this part. It doesn't matter. It's not the quality that makes the difference. It is the supply. It is the quantity that makes the difference in this case.
Some people have also blamed the rise in dollar for the rising prices in food prices. I mean, we saw a recent tweet where somebody was saying the Gari and yam in your house, how is it connected to the dollars? And what if exchange rate of dollar becomes 1 naira to 2,000, for instance? You should explain how this affects the price of yams in a half year Abia State. And I saw that you did a lot of tweets about that. So share your thoughts with us on this issue. Why people would raise the prices of their food items produced here in Nigeria because the price of dollar is rising.
Well, I felt attacked because Ohafia is my maternal place. So I felt attacked particularly.
It's just an example.
But this is just the truth there. Everybody responds to his own welfare. So the man who brings food to the market goes back home and wants to buy a sachet of detergent, and that sachet of detergent is being imported. Yes, he sold his yam or he sold his gari for giveaway price because it's on the increase. It's abundant. but he goes home to buy a bar of soap or detergent, or he goes home to like buy for shoes, maybe the shoes he wears, and some of the materials are imported, and these things are affected by dollar price. So if he has a lesser amount of money, which is his proceeds from gari or yam, and he cannot afford to buy detergent, what will happen? He will tell you that the man who imports detergent is not more important than himself. He contributes to the economy as well. So he will have to increase the price of his own commodity so as to meet up with that demand or the price of household commodity. So this is economics is not abstract. It's just add one, add two, and you get three. So the point here is just very simple, that if we must tell ourselves the truth, our economy is still a dependent one. And being a third world country, we import a lot of these things that we need. We import down to some basic household equipment. And so these basic household equipment, the prices of dollar affect them because most of the things, the raw materials used in producing them are imported. So if we import these raw materials, which directly is affected by the price of dollar, the man will have to increase the price of his wares as well so as to meet up with that. So it's just very, very
But
simple.
some people will argue that it boils down to supply, demand and supply, and not necessarily the price, because things in the market have increased. So let me increase my price, the cost of yam or local products. Then what happens to the supply of it? When you sell more, then you get more money and still maintain the price that originally people will get these things.
Well, when you look at it at the other side of it, when you sell more and you get more money from whatever you're selling, and then you take what you have and you take it to buy other things as well, it doesn't balance, it doesn't add up. You now come to a point where and there is no local production of that thing you need. Now, when you look at it very well, it is just like the former system of economics, well, the former system of trading, where you had trade by barter when you had no currency. So now, the person who, when we had the system of trade by barter, and then you're bringing, let's say, for instance, for someone who has cement, and then I have rice at home, and then you have just 3 bags of cement, and I have over 100 bags of rice, and I need those 3 bags of cement because I need to build a house where I can stay to avoid the rainfall from like destroying even the rice I saved at home. What will happen? You can exchange your 3 bags of cement for a ton of rice for all you care, because you have what I need more desperately. So it obeys that simple law. It is not a matter of, even if you're selling, even if I am a millionaire in naira, and then according to the dollar price, what happens is that when you convert my 1 million, like as it happened in Zimbabwe at some point, when you convert my 1 million and you put it, when you peg it to the naira, it's just like about $10. So if it happens in that case, I will have no choice but to increase what the price of what I'm selling so as to meet up with the price of dollar, so as to meet up with the other commodities I need. Man's need is not, we have several needs, not unilateral, it's multilateral. We have needs ranging from clothing to shelter to food. So if that of food is met, and that of clothing is meant to be imported as well, so it will obey that simple rule that says that if this one is in higher demand, there will be higher price so as to meet up that supply.
Well, some people have also blamed the cost of transportation on the rising food prices. Petrol, we know, is not cheap anymore. But farmers face a lot of challenges, we know. And they have attributed one of the cost of transportation as being one of the issues. So how do you think the issue of high cost of transportation can be tackled by farmers and even the government?
Well, I think that's why I said government policy on its own did not help matters, because when you look at it, we were just coming out of a lockdown and there was a hike in the price of petrol and fuel. So it wasn't like the recession wasn't, or the inflation of food prices wasn't predicted. This time around, we could predict from the insecurity in the Northeast that there was going to be this scarcity of food. And definitely when there's scarcity, there's going to be an increase in price. So we suspected it was going to happen. But the problem was just coming out of a lockdown, and there was abundant fuel. Not because we didn't have abundant, there was abundant because several companies that did consume our fuel shut down. And so instead of gradually seeing the phase of increase in price, there was just this rapid increase in price. And then look at the transportation, number one, that sector was affected. A lot of cars were redundant, and these people wanted to recoup. Some of them were, for instance, if a company took money like loan to start up a transport or haulage business, and for those 5 months they were shut down and they were just coming into it, there will be, these are several factors that we predicted added to, we predicted they were going to add to the price of transportation. So when there is the increase in fuel price affecting transport on one part, the willingness and I don't know if I would say zeal in this case, but the willingness or the ambition of most business owners to recoup their investment. Remember, some of these loans, some of these businesses took loans and they were paying, they were servicing those loans during the lockdown. And so that being the case, they wanted to recoup their money. There was going to be an increase in the cost of transportation. This would directly affect the prices of food in the market. So the government would have helped matters in the sense that they would have helped, at least for a while, withhold that suspension on subsidy that they removed. And when they, probably if they had withheld it, would have seen like that indirect effect on the cost of transportation. It wouldn't have been that direct, but at this point now, where do you go back to? Number one, we must look at the fact that the government policy on transportation, the government policy. Okay, look at it now. Due to COVID-19, there was this what's it called, social distancing. So cars that did carry four, carry two, or carry three, as the case
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for joining. Hello, Mr. Caleb. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So you've mentioned government policies, and well, one of the policies or initiative like the Anchors Borrowers Program. How do you assess the impact of this program and some of the policies that have been implemented in time past on the agricultural sector?
Well, you remember at some point there was this news of a flood destroying a lot of and we know the anchor borrower scheme was specific. You get me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so particularly in places where flood affected, and a lot of those farmers were people who took the anchor borrowers fund that was
Yes.
given for um, farmers, and it affected yield to an extent because flood definitely destroys crops and all that. So it affected farming in places like in the northwest where they needed rain but not too much, so the rains destroyed it. But secondly, there were funds that were disbursed during the COVID-19, and some of them were not targeted at agriculture. Now let me say this particularly: there was a mistake that was made during COVID-19. A lot of persons were enlisted or designated as, what's it called again? They were designated as essential service providers,
Yes.
doctors, some of you in the media, and
Broadcast.
a lot
Yes.
of
Yes.
persons as well.
Yes.
But farmers were not listed as
Essential
essential
workers.
service providers, essential workers. So farmers were locked in their houses. We were not depending on the storage that had been done or harvest that had been done previously. So people did not go to their farms for the better part of the productive part of this year. So these people who were conventional farmers were meant to go to farm to
Mm.
work, so they couldn't go. They were indoors because there was a lockdown. So we could not designate farmers to go to the farms. So if, for instance, the person took a loan and should have gone to his farm to be productive, he will stay in his house. Probably for those of them who stayed in their houses, they will eat the ones they've gathered before,
Oh.
and the major aim there was survival. So that was one policy we did not get right, enlisting farmers as essential service providers. So now the chicken has come home to roost, and this is harvest. So in a season where we were meant to be harvesting what we would have what we planted in the farms, we're now at home telling ourselves the onions is now like, maybe when you see someone selling onions, he goes around with police escort. So I saw that, and I was laughing myself. So now, instead of us like harvesting, we're now going through the pains of not planting. So it's just like that, the proverb of the person who was given a talent and he buried it. So now the master has come back to ask us of the result of what was given to us, and we have nothing to show for it, because it was a policy that went wrong. We didn't have sufficient enough. We didn't have sufficient enough, so we did not plant. And what are we expecting? We can't reap where we did not sow. So it's just that, basically that was what happened, and we're still paying for that. So the schemes, some of them were they were implemented, but secondly, you also will not take away the fact that there's massive sleaze going on, corruption particularly. So funds were
Mm.
disbursed during COVID-19, and you see a lot of persons, but maybe someone is doing masters and the person gets COVID-19 fund, but a farmer does not get. And so the a laptop or a text. People are hungry, and no matter how you tell me about, I once wrote an article, apples, not apps. So no matter how much you build an app, the man in my village wants to eat. He does not understand what you're telling him about an app that he can use to order food, because that food that can be ordered is also was also from the farm. So we're now at that point, particularly where we're paying for that mistake. It was a poorly conceptualized policy during the lockdown.
Okay, now that you mentioned onions, I've been wondering why onions actually increased like that and it became king in the market. But some people say the influence of middlemen in fixing the prices of food after they buy it at cheap rates from farmers is always felt by the final consumer in high prices. So, do you think it's possible to reduce the influence of middlemen? And if yes, how should it be done?
Sylvia, at this point, I think it's difficult to even blame the middlemen because we have scarcity. Honestly, I must tell you the truth. I won't rule out the fact that those guys are influential, middlemen are influential as well. I won't rule out the fact that it's that way. But the point is, at this point, it's difficult to blame them because there's acute scarcity of those things. So, for instance, a place where you go to and you get 10 bags of it readily available, and you go and you get 1 bag, it does not matter how much you try to rule away the middleman, the price will increase because there is a shorter supply in the market. So I just it's a difficult thing to look at the issue of middlemen at this point in time, because if we try to do that, we negate simple logic and economics as well. So, but if we're being truthful to ourselves, there is scarcity, there is acute scarcity. And secondly, we touched on the issue of border closure. At this point in time, it's not a question of if you have strong, if you have this strength, political will to withstand the pressures of what is happening. We just have to open our borders. We have to open our borders, and in no little way, we just have to open them. Really? America still. Okay.